Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Bava Metzia daf Mem Aleph. We're going to begin on the bottom of Mem Amid by the new Masnisin. Let's see the new Mishnah. Hamafkid chavis etzel chavero. A person leaves as a safekeeping a barrel, obviously with some stuff in it, by his friend. V'lo yachtoila, but he did not designate Balim Makoim. There was no specific place where it was supposed to be put. It was just given over to him. Now, and that's an important detail, as we're going to see in the Mishnah. Since there was no specific place where it was supposed to be put, so we say it this. If Vitiltala, let's say the Shomer moved the item, the Chavis, Vinishtabra, and it broke. So it depends. First of all, if it has to still be in the shomer's hands when it broke, as opposed to him having put it down. And if it's l'tzar chay, if the shomer moved it for his own purposes, for his own needs, then chayiv. So therefore, the Mishnah says you actually have to have two criteria. That he's holding the chavis, as well as he moved it for his own purposes. However, l'tzar ka pater. If it was for the benefit of the item itself, then even though he's holding it, it doesn't make any difference. The din is that he'll be potter. Now that's because there was no designated place. And then the Mishnah continues and says actually, im mishahanicha nishbra ben letzarcha ben letzarka potter. Again, because you need both criteria, so even if he moved it for his own purpose, but if he's no longer holding on to it and he put it down and it broke later, then he's going to be potter in that situation as well. Okay. So the idea is that he finished using it, and therefore once he put it down, we're going to see again why that changes things. Okay, but he'll be potter. Now that's because it was not designated. Then the Mishnah says yachtul habal makoim. Let's say there was a specific place where it was put, this pikadon, but tiltula, and he moved it and it broke. So ben mitach yado ben mishahanicha l'tzarcha chay l'tzarcha potter. So in this case, we're more strict in that in the event that he moved it for his own purposes, it doesn't make any difference. At that point, even if it was broken afterwards, he's still going to be chayiv. Okay, so that's the distinction. If you did not have a special place for it, so then the din is you have, for the shomer to be chayiv, you have to have two things. You have to have, first of all, you have to have that he's holding it, and second of all, it was for his own purposes. Mashenkin, if there was miyachin loy makoim, if there was a special place designated for this chavis, so the din is that once it's litzarka, he'll be chayiv. Says the Gemara. Now, Hamani, who is this Mishnah like? What part of the Mishnah? So first of all, let's just read the words. Rabbi Shmuel. So says Rashi, Hadid Tani Reisha. The beginning of the Mishnah said that if it wasn't designated, and De'im Mishanicha Nishbra, and he put it down, Afal Pish Litzarcha, even though it was for his own purposes, Natla Metchila Potter. The reality is that once he puts it down, he no longer is chayiv. Why? Says Rashi, it must be De'omer Meshachzira. Once he puts it down, Harihibur Shosabalim. Kivat Chila. It's considered now like in the Rishus of the Baalim, just as it was originally before he picked it up. And therefore, now that he's not using it, so therefore he has the status of a shomer chinam, who is being not compensated. Upater al oin seha. We know that a shomer chinam is pater when it comes to any oinus. So therefore, even though he did pick it up, and once he put it down, that's it. It's considered like already in the hands of the Baal, so to speak, even though the Baal didn't know that he put it down. So we're going to see that according to this opinion, you don't need das Baalim. I picked it up and I put it down. It's still considered to be returning. Rabbi Shmuel, why? So let's go back to the Mar. Rabbi Shmuel, who says the Yomer will be in das Baalim. You don't need to inform the owner that you put it down. You picked it up, you put it down. It's considered like it's his rishus already, and therefore the shem will be potter. To Sanya, if a person would steal an animal from a flock, or for that matter, sell him in a kiss, he stole some coins. Now, Lamakam Shiganav Yachser, to Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel is of the opinion that you should return it to the same place where you stole it. And Rabbi Kiva Omer, as we continue to Mem Aleph Mem Aleph, Rabbi Kiva says that Sarch Das Bailim, that it's not enough just to put it back where you took it from, but you actually need to also let him know that you took it. Says Rashi, V'im lo hodiyam, if you didn't tell him, then chayev b'achriyusam. You're still going to be chayev b'meso nignav, because once you picked it up, it's in your rishus, and there it's not considered to be a proper hashava returning until you inform him. But the Reish of our Mishnah seems to imply that even though the shomer picked it up, once he puts it down, he's potter, must be because you don't need das balim, which is like the sheet of Rabbi Shmuel. So the Reish is very good, like Rabbi Shmuel. Now, Rabbi Shmuel, nami. Understand what's the difference whether you designated a place? What's the difference? Even by Ganav, if he picks it up and puts it down, the din is, that's it. You don't need das balam. So what's the difference if there was a special place for it? Gemara says it's a good point. That you designate a specific place. Even if it was not designated, who it's not really his place, Lobin and Das Balam. So it's interesting. The Chiddush is where it's not designated, because there you would maybe think, well, since there's really no place to put it, because that, again, you maybe put it back where it was, but the place where it was originally was not like a special place. So then maybe in that situation you do need Das Balam. The Chiddush is you don't need Das Balam even there. So Ema Seifa. So the Seifa says, what if Taka the Baal does miyachid, he does designate a place for his pikadain, v'tiltul v'nishbra, and the shemer moves it and breaks it. So we said in the end of the Mishnah, even if he already put it down, which is the chiddush here, even though he already put it down, with sarko chayev, with sarko potter. Now, why is it that with sarko you're chayev? It must be because even though you put it down, that's not enough. So therefore, that sounds a time Rabbi Kiva, the Rabbi Das Balam. So it sounds like Rabbi Kiva, the Seifa. So one second, Rabbi Kiva, Mari Yachto Afil Yachto Nami. What's the difference if it was designated? If it wasn't designated, you still need Das Balam. So yes, that's true. Certainly where it was not designated, even if you designated the place, even though you put it back the place where it was designated, so maybe in that case you maybe think you don't need Das Balam, so according to Rabbi Kiva you do. So it's beautiful. Rabbi Kiva really fits great in the Mishnah. But the problem is, Reisha, Rabbi Yeshua, V'Sev, Rabbi Kiva. So where is it in? If anyone could figure out this Mishnah of the Chavis fitting into one Tana, then as a reward, Movana Mani Basar will be Masus. I'm going to basically bring your clothes and carry it like as a servant to the bathhouse for you, because it really is a stira within the Reish and the Seifa. So so that's what it has to be. Obviously, that would be a pretty interesting bonus of having him carry your stuff. So Tirgum Rabbi Yankov bar Abba Kamei Derav, and he says Shenatal al Manasla Geisla. So what is that? Says Rashi. Really, as Rashi says, Kula Kachad Tana, Utrei Taimi. Really, maybe it is one Tana. Reisha Shech Zirlim Kaima. So in the Reisha, where you put it back in its original place, the whole Makam Shech Zirim Kaimahi. Any place you put it is considered its place because it wasn't designated anywhere. The Seifa Shech Zirlim Lumakim Shenu Mekaimai. And in the Seifa, you returned it to a place which is not its location. So Rashi says, skipping a few lines, in that case, lo havya chazara. So in that situation, basically in the Reisha, we're saying he put it down, but it didn't matter because there was no designated place. But the Seifa, the reason why is because when he put it, why you chayiv, is because he put it down in a situation where he was yachad loy makom, and he put it not in the right place, and therefore he didn't put it back in the right place, and therefore he's going to be chayiv. So therefore that's how he could possibly answer this. So Tirgum Rav Nassim bar Abba Kamei Derav Shenatal Manas L'Shloach B'Yad. So he says it's possible we're talking about a situation, again, maybe it wasn't taken for the sake of stealing, but almanas l'shalach bayad. His intention was just to use the item. The shomer was intending to use the item. It says Rashi, v'litul miksasa, maybe to take a little bit of it. V'natol afil hach, but he didn't actually take it. His intention was to use it. Afil hachi kamale b'rishusi cool. It's considered like in his rishus. V'hamli gezela uboy hashava. He has to return it. Uvamakam she'enu mekaymo. And as we said in the Seva, it's not considered to be a hashava if you don't return it in the right place. So, what exactly is this machlokas? So, the question is whether or not shlich hajad, when a person has the intention, in order to be chayiv, even if an oinus happens to it, as Rashi says, which is mashma, if you were shalach, you would be chayiv, is whether or not you need sricha hisaron. No, there's something lacking in the chayfa. It says Rashi, we'll have a shlich hashad, lahamida b'rshuso el inkin chasra. That it's not enough that you intended to use it, but you actually did use it and you caused some type of something lacking now in the object. So that is the question. One who says that our Mishnah is talking about where his intention was to steal it, and therefore our Mishnah, there's no chisaron, and therefore we're going to establish it like the case of someone who had intention to steal it. And therefore that's the Mishnah. It's possible that our Mishnah can be like that. Okay, let's hold off 1 second. Let's see question 1. He did not designate the place, which is the ratio. He did it for his own sake, and he put it down. Mahadin. So it's really a machlokus if he already put it down. Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Kiva. So the question is whether you need das balam. So he could be potter because in sarch das balam. Rabbi Kiva says Yechayev the whole deloi hoidil balam eno hashava. If you didn't actually inform the owner, then it's not considered to be a proper hashava. Okay. So let's continue. Maskiv Rav Sheshes midi notla katani. It doesn't say notla tiltula katani. He moved it, which basically means maybe it's not stealing or shlich hashad, as he only moved it. He didn't use it at all. So, how can you say this is even the case of shlich hashad? Actually, his intention was he took this barrel not to use the barrel really to have any benefit of it, like for the barrel itself, but rather just to be able to stand on top of it, to be able to climb on it in order to be able to get some birds. That was his entire motivation of what he did that for. Okay. So the Rashi says tiltul katani tashmish bialma. So and therefore he went to get birds. Says Rashi like a ladder in order to get these birds. They feel hachi havi gazela. It's considered, even though all he did was to step on it in order to get these birds, it still constitutes gazela. We'll make him rishusei. Adiyabat hashava. He actually has to return it. The ksaver shoya shlomadas balim gazlanhu. If you borrow something without the consent of the owner, you're considered like a gazlan. And therefore, since you use this, and this Gemara, go back to Gemara, because saver shoya shlomadas gazlan havi. Therefore, the fact that you use this barrel to be able to stand on top of it, so you acted like a shoyel, but you had to ask because you weren't given permission to do that. You were watching the item, as watching the pikadon, and therefore you're considered like a gazlan. But Kul Rabbi Shmuel, really this whole Mishnah could be like the Shita of Rabbi Shmuel that says, according to Rabbi Shmuel, the Ein Sarach Das Balam, and therefore the ratio makes a whole lot of sense. Therefore you can, if once it's put down, doesn't matter, you're a potter. The Sefer, which talks about where you're chayiv, is the Sefer shenicha b'makam shein mekayma. As we said, you put it down in a place where it was not supposed to, it was not its designated place. Because the Sefer is talking about that you were miyachlo makom, but you returned it in the wrong place. So therefore, once you borrowed it, maybe you're not a gazlan, maybe it wasn't shlich hashad, but you borrowed it, and you're considered to be like halachically like a gazlan. Rav Yochanan, hanicha bimkoima mashma. According to Rav Yochanan, he says no. Hanicha bimkoima mashma. That says hanicha. It sounds like it was actually put back in the proper place. Okay. Itmar Rav v'levi chada imer shlich hashad sricha chisaron v'chada b'shlich hashad ena sricha chisaron. So we have a machlokas again whether or not you actually in order to be chayav for shlich hashad, that all of a sudden you're going to be chayav for anything that happens, you actually have to, there has to be something lacking in the chayfetz. So to staim the Rav who do imer shlich hashad en sricha chisaron, and therefore you'll still be chayav for shlich hashad to sanya. Roya haya roa edroi. So you have a shepherd that was shepherd and tending to the flocks. V'nich edroi, and he left. Uval and he said, I'm going to go to the city for a little bit, which doesn't seem like a good idea because you're supposed to be watching these animals. Uval zev, and then all of a sudden an animal, a fox comes with taraf and starts ripping apart these animals you were supposed to be watching. Uval ari, and a lion comes with dairis. So the din is you are going to be pater. In this situation, you're pater, says Rashi. Why? The oinsin inhu. These are all things which are out of the norm. So why? So Rashi says, a lion inu tarfa elodorsa bimkoim of oichla. Typically, will eat it right in its spot. Okay, and this is Gemara elsewhere. That maybe for its young it will, or for its female lioness. Okay, but in these cases you're pater because it's an oinus. V'imishum dehadiach edro upshehi, that you were negligent by leaving mokminan law the al beinna the al inshi, that you went. Everyone goes back then to the city. In other words, you didn't really do anything which was wrong because that's when everyone leaves anyway. Inami deshama koil ari v'al. You heard a lion coming and you ran away because you can be a good shepherd, but it doesn't mean you have to risk your life. Anyway, so in these cases, you're pater. Haniach makloi v'tarmiloi oleha chayev. Let's say you left your stick, and then v'tarmiloi oleha chayev. So look in Rashi. Let's see. Ha shaklinhu v'ina mishlich hashad chashiva ha hadar hadar kishenatol himena v'anan magmin le'el stam masnid. Okay, so v'avinaba mishom dehaniach makloi v'tarmiloi leha chayev. Understand why you be chayev? Ha shaklinu. So again, you took it. Now, if you want to say shlichus inami shlich hashad chashiva, that this is considered a shlich hashad, that you took something for yourself. Ha hadar hadre. Kishenatol himenu. You put it back. V'anan mokminal el stamas tisur kari shmuel. De'in sorech das balam. So why would you be chayiv if the roya took something which didn't belong to him and he put it back? After all, do we not hold it Rabbi Shmuel? So Amrav Nachman, Amrav Ravua, Amrav ba'oidin aleha. The stick was on the animal when it killed. Okay. So v'chi oidin aleha mai havi. So what does that mean? So halo mashcha, there was no mashicha. Says Rashi, b'shlich hashad kedei look nice, in order to be kind of and have violated shlich hashad, you have to have moved it, and that's only with mashicha. Lo b'mekach v'loi inin geza v'lo inin shlich hashad, and therefore that's the reason why. That's the reason why. Again, with the question halo mashcha, so my have halo mashcha. He didn't do mashicha. So even though he didn't actually move it with mashicha, but if he hit the animal with a stick and then it moved, then he is koinit. But the case, this chayfetz didn't lose anything. So how is that right? So elulav shemamel k'sav shlich hashad ne'enu sricha chisaron. So you see taka that shlich hashad does not need chisaron for him to still be chayiv, because what shlich hashad is there? If again that he used a stick to hit it, and therefore, because of that, now he should be chai because of shlich hashad. Because again, the idea is that if he just went away, then it's fine because that was the normal way. But when he took a stick and he hit it, and therefore that's considered already to be shlich hashad, and that's a meshicha, and so it's shlich hashad. So therefore he's going to be chai for oinsin. These animals that ate it, so he will be chai for oinsin. So, but what's the shlich hashad? Nothing happened to the animal. There's no chisaron. It must be with Sarai the shlich hashad in tzrich chisaron. So ema shekashish b'makel. So why don't we say again that he hit the animal with a stick? So what does that mean? So Rashi says b'hakaiso dahainu chisaron. That actually when you hit the animal, you cause the animal to be losing its value. You've weakened the animal, and therefore shekisha b'makel. Right, you've weakened the animal, and therefore that causes the animal to lose value, and therefore it is chisaron. So again, it must be that the fact that you use a stick to hit this animal, right, as opposed to you just doing mashicha. Why does it say in case you did mashicha and you'd be chayiv for shlich hashad? So maybe you wouldn't be chayiv for shlich hashad because in that case there is no chisaron. Chisaron mamoin, but when you hit the animal, you're weakening the animal, so that's chisaron mamoin. That's maybe good for the reason why we use that case. So my time to Levi, why does he say it's not necessary to still be chayiv for shlich hashad, even if the chavis doesn't lose value? So Rabbi Yosi bar Naharoi mishun shlich hashad ha'amur b'shem sacher mishlich hashad ha'amur b'shem chinam. There's something different. Says Rashi, you cannot compare a shomer, even though they're not supposed to, in either case, use the item. There's a din of shlich hashad, they're not allowed to use the item. If they do, to be chayiv oinsin. But there is a distinction between a shomer sacher who is paid to watch the animal, or the chayfetz, as opposed to a shomer chinam who is not being paid. So mishun shlich hashad hamur b'shomer sacher, mishlich hashad hamur b'shomer Mishamachinam. They're not comparable to one another. V'ani oimer. So let's look at Rashi. Let's before we turn the daf. Kalemer enu daima lezu mizu. They're not the same. One watchman and the other. Nemer litzarech v'lo mishtami el b'chisaron avul shel shemer sacher. Nemra shaloi litzarech mashmoi sheba el l'drasha ulamid she'enu sricha chisaron. So maybe when it comes to a shemer sacher, the din is it does not. In order to be chayav shlich hashad, you don't need chisaron. So there could be a distinction between shemer sacher and shemer chinam regarding that. As we continue, mem alpha and base. V'ani oimer. So Rabbi Yochanan, Rashi says, argues with Rabbi Yosi ben Nori, and he says, no, einu mishuna, and therefore he says, remember, afi l'tzarech nemra, even l'tzarech. It was said, so he will actually hold that it doesn't need it, and therefore you're going to be chayiv. Fine. What does it mean that shemer sacher is different from shemer chinam? Lo ter shlich hashad b'shemer sacher, because you could say, don't mention anything about shlich hashad at all by someone who's being paid. The taste of shemer chinam. If there's already a mentioning about the din that there's a din of shlich hashad that you'll be chayiv if the shomer uses the item, and the shomer is a shemer chinam, just mention that you won't need a shemer sacher. It'll be obvious that you're going to be chayiv. Because when it comes to a shemer chinam, we know that it's more lenient because he's not being paid. So if it gets stolen or lost, he's not going to be chayiv. But nonetheless, the pasuk would say the shalch by yad chayiv, that by shlich hashad you would be chayiv or ointzen. So then don't mention anything about shemer sacher. Shemer sacher shechayiv b'gnei v'aveda lo kol shekain. So l'may hilchasa. So l'may hilchasa kas vinhu. Rachmana. Why would the Torah mention by shemer sacher that there's a din shlich hashad? It just mentioned by shemer chinam, which is part of gnei v'aveda, and you would know certainly, even though shemer chinam is part of gnei v'aveda, you're still chayiv shlich hashad by ointzim. So certainly by shemer sacher, whether you're chayiv gnei v'aveda. So loy malach, the reason why it's mentioned also by shemer sacher, that shlich hashad in a sricha chisaron. It's actually to teach us this chiddush that when it comes to shemer sacher, when it comes to a shomer, Shlich Hashad does not need a chisaron. So that's the additional chiddush. The fact that it's added, which you could again just deduce Shomer Sacher from Kal V'chomer, is teaching you that it's still. Why is it mentioning it? It's telling you you're even chayiv even if there's no chisaron. V'ani omer enu b'shona. Rabbi Elazar actually hold it's not there. The omer da v'da achasi, that really they're one and the same. Shomer Sacher and Shomer Chinam are really the same. Umay da v'da achas. What does it mean? Mishum v'dikol mifrach. Because you can say, well, one second, there's a Kal V'chomer that Shomer Sacher should certainly be chayav shlich hashad. No, why? There's actually a pircha. Malo Shomer Chinam shechin misham tashlumi kefel b'toyin tenis ganav. We know it comes to a Shomer Chinam, he would have to pay kefel in the situation if he claims that the item was stolen. Why? Because again, a Shomer Chinam is pater in Geneva Aveda. So therefore, if someone says, oh, so where's the item? So you can say, oh, it was stolen. But the truth is you're lying. You made a shvuah and you lie. The truth is it's really by you. So that's a case of Toin Tanas Ganav. And you're chayiv kefil for Toin Tanas Ganav. That's obviously only the case of Shomer Chinam. But you can't make that taina by Shomer Sacher because you're chayiv b'genev anyway, right? So there's no din of Toin Tanas Ganav by a Shomer Sacher. Right? Shomer Sacher can't make this claim as he's chayiv b'genev aveda. So therefore, since there's a din of Toin Tanas Ganav that you're chayiv by Shomer Chinam, not by Shomer Sacher, that messes up the whole Kal V'chomer, and therefore you can't learn out, oh, it must be the fact that it's extra, that Shlich Hashad doesn't need chisaron, maybe it does. So Mandaloi Parich, the one who doesn't ask this kasha savar, Karna B'loi Shvua, Adifa Mikfeil B'Shvua. Because a Shomer Sacher will have a chiyav having not to pay the kefel, because he's chayiv geneva aveda, but since he's chayiv geneva, he has to pay the karen. So what's worse? The fact you only have to pay one, the principal, but you are chayiv even without a shua, as opposed to the Shomer Chinam, even though he has to pay double, he'd have to pay kefil, that's only if he made a shvua. Because we know by the din of Toin Tanas Ganav, you're only chayiv b'shvua. Rabbi Omer, lo ti'er m'shlich hashad, lo b'shomer Chinam, lo b'shomer Sacher. The truth is, you don't need it by either of them. How then would you learn shlich hashad? V'teisim shoyel. You can learn out from the din of a borrower. Uma shoyel. When it comes to a borrower, diladas bailim ka'avid, that he's doing it with the consent of the owner, he's borrowing it, right? So he's allowed to use it. He said, can I use this? Yes, he borrows it and he uses it. Nonetheless, shoch miyad chayiv. However, once he uses it, so the din is he's going to be chayiv. So Shomer Chinam and Shomer Sacher will kol shekain, where they're not really supposed to be using it, a borrower, he's supposed to use it. But he'll be chayiv once he starts using it, a shoyel is chayiv. If there's an oinus, a shoyel is where it is the most chayiv. So certainly we should say by Shomer Sacher Shomer Chinam, the din should be that where you're not supposed to use it, so certainly you should be chayiv b'shlich hashad. So Loman Emra, so why does it say it now two times by Shomer Sacher and Shomer Chinam? One is to tell you shlich hashad in suich hachisaron, as we mentioned before, that you're still going to be chayiv b'shlich hashad even if there's nothing lost. The idach, and the second time is shaloi timer dayo of a din leas kanidain. Don't say dayo. That, oh, this is not a good, this Kal V'chomer, you should say dayo. Ma shoyel b'bayalim potter av Shomer Chinam v'Shomer Sacher b'bayalim potter. So if you want to say dayo, there's an interesting din by a shoyel that bal imoy, that if the owner is there, says Rashi, in bal of imo ksiv lo yishal moinsin. You're not chayiv if something happens if the owner of the object in which you're borrowing is with you. So maybe it's the same thing when it comes to Shomer Sacher, Shomer Chinam. If the Baal is with you, you're pater. So we don't say that. It's only that din of Baal Imo is dafka by a shoyel. However, not by Shomer Sacher, Shomer Chinam. Now you would maybe think Dailov of the din lias kanadain, and therefore you should tackle learn that since we're learning a shlich hashad from a shoyel, so it should only be chayiv if the Baal is not there. But the Baal is there, you'd be pater. Also by the Shomer Sacher Shomer Chinam? No, don't make such a thing. Why? That's the reason why it says it the second time. Question 2. Lamai asa kroi to shlich hashad b'Shomer Chinam and Shomer Sacher. V'archiyuv de shlich hashad metzina l'meil kavachar mishoyel. Again, you can learn it from a shoyel. The chayusa tayir ba'insim mishum dechol hanoshaloi afal pi di avid badas even though it was with consent. So he says like this: B'shayim rechinam loy merlach shlicha shan sircha chisaron. Oh, mandi b'shlicha shan sircha chisaron lo mel because there shel b'shlicha shan the shomer sacher to boy shvuel mifter meganeva vaveda shomer sacher l'chaybo af bebal of imoy shloy tamerdayoi. Okay. This was also the same as question TB28. So this is, I already went over ahead of myself. Now, if you hold that Shlicha Shad does need chisaron, so hani tarti Shlicha Shad lomli, so I need to. So chadash loy tamer dayai, labu niliyos kinidain. One is again dayai. They don't say dayai. We don't say that by just like the owner being by the shoyel, you're pater ba'insin soto by shomer sacher shomer chinam. No, you're still gonna be chayav by shomer chinam and shomer sacher. V'idach, look at the sanya. It says in the pasuk, "V'nikra bal bayis elokim." You're supposed to go to the courts, l'shvua, which means there's a chiyuv shvua. Atar shvua inu el ladin. Maybe it just means to go to court. Nemer shlicha shalamat v'nemer shema shalamala malhol l'shvua avkan l'shvua. So it's coming to tell us. Says Rashi Lamanu Shein Mishalman Kefel Agdi Tainus Ganav. By Tainus Ganav, it's coming to tell you the din. You're only going to be chayev le'achar shvua. V'gam Lamanu Shenifne Meganeva Aveda v'shvua. Okay, so again, Geneva Aveda Shomer Chinam is pater from shvua, is pater from a shvua, but all their situations is like, for example, this case of being Tainus Ganav, that the person claims it was stolen, and then he would make a shvua to that effect, then he would be chayav. So therefore, that is what question again 2. This is what he said. The boy shvua okay, all right. Again, we're going to stop there. We have maybe TA 27 possibly. Let's see. Hamafkid peros eitzel chavero. Oh, we did that one. Shomer shtamish bibikadon. Shomer uses an abda bikadon. Him chayiv medin shlicha shad. Is he chayiv for shlicha shad? Or medin shoyel shlomadas. And my nafkamina is that. What's the real nafkamina between the two? If in either case. So b'davar she'eno. Let's see. This is 27. I want to make sure I'm going to say this right. So this is what B'davar she'ein something Chai Mishum Shoy Shel Medas. Just trying to and Hamachishin Chai Mishum Shel Rasha Nachun Chesron Kit. I'm not even sure this is completely if we did this yet. Bal Choy Machishin Chai Mishum Shel Rasha Nachun I'm not sure. It doesn't sound like we even did this, so we're going to hold off, and maybe we'll see this possibly tomorrow on Khan.